Be the Bridge community. I am so excited to have. I always call everybody my brother. I have a lot of
Yeah.
brothers, but
Okay.
I'm just
I
saying,
love it.
like when I have a Black Nigerian brother, someone that's from Nigerian descent, on the call, I always call them my brother. So you're gonna get used to me um, doing that, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute and why I do that.
Okay.
And so I am so happy to have someone that we've known each other. This is our
Hmm.
first time meeting and talking,
Right.
but I feel like I know you.
Same. Same.
And I have the pleasure of introducing you to Pastor John Onwuchekwa, who is the
Okay.
pastor of Cornerstone Church in Atlanta, the best city in the world right now.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I get to say that because I live here too. He is working in one of the oldest inner city neighborhoods. He currently serves as the council associate for the Gospel Coalition. He speaks at colleges, conferences, and internationally. You hold a degree in Christian education from Dallas Theological Seminary and is currently pursuing his doctorate in church leadership and community witness from Emory University's Candler School of Theology. He's been married for 14 years. He just adopted a dog that I found out about, a poodle, and he
Awesome.
loves his beautiful wife, Chandra, and they are proud parents to a beloved baby girl. And then some of the latest things that John has been working on that I want you guys to hear about is Portrait Coffee. If you're here,
Yeah.
if you're listening from the Atlanta area, if you've gotten some gifts from Be the Bridge before in the past, you may have gotten some Portrait Coffee. It's a company that exists to empower and equip Atlanta natives and residents with genuine career and life opportunities in the world of coffee. And so you're speaking my language when
There
it
we
comes
go.
to coffee. So, brother, it is a pleasure to have you on the Be the Bridge podcast. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
I want to hear more. I know I just did your bio introduction, but I
Yeah.
want you to kind of, I can't say everything. I want you to fill in the gaps that I missed in the introduction, and just tell the Be the Bridge audience who you are, the things I missed,
Yeah.
and I just want you to know that it's a pleasure to have you on here, and we're gonna jump right in. So,
All right.
turn
Yeah.
it over to you, Mr. John.
All right. No, thank you. So, uh, the bio was great. I think the only thing that, one of the major things that's changed is that, so I'm no longer a pastor. Um,
Okay.
in what I feel like is the best possible way, right? So most
Okay.
times when people say that, it
Uh huh.
uh, was either burnout, moral failure, retirement in old
Mm-hmm.
age, right? Yo,
Right.
I lost my hair when I was 30. That was 8 years ago. So I'm not, I'm not old now. I was a little bit of that
uh,
pastoral stress. So I'm still working, but I'm
mm-hmm.
no longer a pastor. So as of 6 weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
I resigned from Cornerstone. So it was a church I helped to start 8 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, led as the lead teaching pastor for 8 years. And
Mm-hmm.
at the end of last year, me and
Okay.
my wife decided that it was right time not to,
Wow.
we didn't sell our house. We still live here in the West End. We're
Yeah.
still part of the church. But it was just, the church had grown and gotten to a size organizationally where, as I've just looked at my life and as we've thought about,
Mm-hmm.
we've been married 15 years and I've been pastoring for 16 years, right? And
Wow.
again, I'm not an old man. Uh,
Right.
and as we just thought about this next season of life, just
Mm.
really felt like that the Lord was, pulling our hearts in, contributing to kingdom work in a
Mm-hmm.
different way. For the past 16 years,
Right.
it's been inside of the four walls of the church.
Wow.
And
Wow.
now we're just eager to explore about what's next. Yeah.
Wow. First of all, that is amazing. Like,
Yeah.
just the maturity to come to that decision.
Yeah.
And I think it's also just just really accolades in the sense where the church has been set up in a way where you can actually do that. Like it wasn't just revolving around you as the sole, teaching pastor. And I think when I read your post, I was like, this is incredible. Like, and I know, and I think you're going to free so many pastors up to do that, because sometimes we'll wait until, pastors will wait until crash and burn, or until you start going through the kind of the downward slope where the church starts declining. But your church is growing. It's a fruitful church. And so, I hope people listening, can share. They can find out more about the story by reading the letter that you posted on your Instagram page. But I think it's just having been in local church ministry, having served full time on four different staff. I mean, this is like an incredible to hear that, because I've never seen that. But I think it's something when you go out strong and you go out, like you said, you're just shifting positions within the kingdom work, because there is work outside of out of pastoring. And so I'm thankful. I'm no longer on a local church staff anymore, but I am still actively doing ministry through this work of Be the Bridge. And so, I love that. I love that.
And let me be clear too, right? So I don't want to paint myself as the hero or as if this was completely altruistic. There is an aspect where it was, as the church was growing, part of it was, I was like, oh, I want to ensure that it continues to grow. And I think one of the things that I've learned about myself in, this 16 years of pastoring, 20 years of even starting to think this way, I've learned that I'm a much better team builder than I am a team leader, right? So if we're going to start something, if we need to bring together a team and build those folks, I am your man. As we grow and we get to a place where we need HR and structure, it is a detriment both to my health and sanity, and a detriment to the organization to leave me in charge. And so I've learned that it's if this thing really is going to continue to grow and be healthy, then I need to get out of the way for my sake as well as for the sake of the church. So
so I say this a lot in Be the Bridge, because you said you need kind of growers and builders, and like you got to have people that pioneer, and some that sustain or maintain, just different leadership skills that you need. But I think it's important to understand your style of leadership. And so realizing that you're a builder, I see this so much. And in this work, especially of racial justice work, as we deal with the lack of racial literacy, I see a lot out there where you see a lot of gifted leaders where there's a gifting in the building, but then when it comes to putting the infrastructure in place, then there's a shutdown, and it kind of burns. And it's like, so just knowing your leadership, where there's so much that can be accomplished, where sometimes some people are called to start the work, and then there's others that are called to finish it, to take it on to the next level. And I think that's just something that's really inspirational, and I think that a lot of people can learn from that. With us, I remember we were going through some infrastructure strat ops within our organization, and the lady who was the consultant, she said, in this space that you're in, you need a lot of pioneers and you need a lot of builders. She said, but you have a lot of maintainers.
There
and
it
she
is.
said that's going to be problematic,
There it is.
And so, and so that's, because building is difficult, building is hard. Now, I would love to hear how you come to Atlanta. I want to know what you're working on now. I want to talk about your book. There's so much, and we got to do all of this within an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
So how did I want to hear some of the backstory of how did you end up in Atlanta and why Atlanta?
Yeah. So after college at Baylor, I moved to Denton, which is north of Dallas. And so I did seminary at Dallas Theological, and I helped a group of folks start a church there in Denton. So
Mm-hmm.
this is 17 years ago now, right? Yeah, it's crazy
Mm-hmm.
to talk in all these years. And a few years into the church, what took place was that um, as like uh, uh, the these like interconnected communities started to kind of talk about what God was trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
17 years ago, at least, there was a resurgence in terms of wanting churches in our context that were both contextually relevant for where we are and for a particular
Mm-hmm.
demographic. And so we started to have conversations about what it would look like to help to come alongside the movement that was already starting to plant churches in city centers. And as we talked about it, there was a core group that was a part of this church plant in Denton, about 25 people who banded together and said, hey, we have a desire to move to a place where we can plant roots long term, right? We
Mm-hmm.
had a desire to move to a place that uh, was a city of influence so that we could
Mm-hmm.
reproduce what we were trying to do. We had a desire to move to a city that was made up primarily of a minority people group. We decided to move to a city that had a strong college presence. So those were things like, as we
Mm-hmm.
triangulated how God had moved in the past, we felt like, all right, we want all of this in a city. And as we sat and prayed and talked and thought through, Atlanta was that city, right?
Mm.
So this is um 2009, 25 of us from Denton, 12 to 14 folks from Memphis all made the move to Atlanta to start what was Blueprint Church back then.
Mm-hmm.
So Dahadi
Okay.
Lewis, yeah, myself, um, yeah, 25 folks there. Uh, there's a lot of folks that don't know Lecrae and the rest of the guys from Reach Records. Like, they moved down
Yeah.
and they helped and were a big part of that. So that was how we got from Texas to Atlanta to
Okay.
really see that
Yeah.
launch. And the church launched, and people came and they were a part of the church in their seasons and transition.
Yeah.
And then what got us to the West End was, this is probably 12 years ago, a guy by the name of Richard Mullen. So
Okay.
Richard Mullen, he's the lead pastor at Cornerstone Church now. Me and Richard were freshman roommates at Baylor 20 years ago. And for 19 of the past 20 years, we haven't just lived in the same city. We've lived in the same neighborhoods. So this is
Mm-hmm.
12 years ago. Richard and a group of folks move into the West End. And this was back when the West End was, there ain't no belt line coming through the West End.
Oh,
Nobody,
I
right?
know the
Yeah.
West End.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So
That's why I asked this question.
this is what I'm saying. Yeah. So this was that West End.
Okay.
And it was a time where nobody wanted to move in there. There was like no thought of a resurgence of the West End.
Mm.
And Richard Mullen and his family, Erica Brown, you know that name?
No, I don't. I'm not familiar
Okay.
with it.
We got to talk about her too. She would be
Okay.
somebody.
Okay.
Y'all are really linked. So there were a group of 3 families, and they said,
Mm-hmm.
we could move anywhere that we want to in the city. Let's move to the part of town that nobody else wants to go to. And their
Mm.
aim was, as we move in, we're going to buy homes. We're going to be intentionally relational, and we're going
Mm-hmm.
to be explicitly Christian. So their thing was,
Yeah.
we're not going to hide the fact that we came here because we love the Lord, but they got involved in the PTA, the neighborhood associations, cleaning up the West End. And this was the West End 2 years removed from the financial crisis that hit our zip code harder than
Mm-hmm.
any other zip code in the US. So you would drive
Right.
down the street
Yeah.
at noon, and if there's 20 homes on the street, 13 of the homes are vacant, drugs and
Mm-hmm.
prostitution in the daytime, and they move in. And as they just start to work and build the community, what you started to get was people that lived here in the West End saying things like, now listen, I know y'all are Christians and all of that. And they're like, I don't really, fool with Jesus or mess with him like that. But they're like, but it's something about the way that y'all love one another and love us, that their words were, I think if y'all were to start a church here, that we would come and be a part.
Mm.
So Richard was like, hey man, I think that we need to start a church here on the West Side. Our neighbors aren't going to ride the train to take the 5 miles to the Old Fourth Ward. What does it look
Yeah.
like to start a community where people can see people that love them throughout the week? And at this point, I lived in East Atlanta, and me and my wife had just bought a house, a nice house. It was fine, safe. Pizza delivery came to our crib. Like, we didn't have to worry, because back then you couldn't get a pizza in the West End. So I told Richard, it's like, yo, I'm down to move, but good luck convincing my wife, right? I try to use her as an out. And Richard was like, text her. She comes downstairs to my study. And in 15 minutes, Richard had convinced her to move to the West End. So we just prayed and started to round out the team. And once again, right, I'm a team builder, that I've just said, all right, Lord, I think that you've called us here, but if you did, who else would you call? And so Trip Lee is one of my best friends in the world. And so I'm like, yo, Trip's got to be a part. So we called Trip. Hey, man, we got a plan for your life. Flew him down the next week and convinced him to come down. Richard had a friend, Mo. And all of a sudden, we saw this church start to form there in the West End. And we called the church Cornerstone for two reasons. One, we felt like there was already a community rebuilding project that was starting to go on in the West End. Right. And we felt that when you're getting ready to build something, a cornerstone is the first stone that's laid, right? That if you've got a strong cornerstone, then it'll help to align all the rest of the stones. And we felt that, all right, that spiritual anchor is what we need here for the West End. We also called it Cornerstone because we felt that a cornerstone is the first stone that's laid. It's not the only stone that's laid. Right. If all you do is build a church, you're not going to rebuild an entire community, right? The church comes first, but there are other subsequent things, right? There's socioeconomic things that we've got to fix. There's racial things that we've got to fix. There's educational things that we have to fix. And so we said, all right, let's start here and build this church, and then let's move outward. And so, 8 years ago, we set out on this journey, and we said, hey, the most important thing is that let's plant roots. Let's all buy homes. Let's plant roots. And the journey to try to be a part of the change of the West End is going to feel like an acorn growing into an oak tree. That we're just going to plant that seed, and we're just going to commit for the next 15 years, not to take an assessment of what goes on, but just to put our heads down and to do the ordinary, unimpressive work in obscurity of watering the ground and the soil. And then 15 years from now, we'll sit up and we'll look out. But we know that the people that really bring substantive change are people who have a sense of urgency, but they've cultivated a virtue of patience. So they know that their work is what they have to do now, but they also do not expect to sit in the shade of the oak trees of righteousness that they plant. And so we said, all right, that's what we're going to do and give our time to. And nobody may ever come to this church that we plant in the hood. Nobody may write a article of what it is that we plan to do, but we trust that, we're doing our best to, do what God has called us to do. So, I
love it. Thanks for that background. And I definitely want to go back to just kind of like when you talked about the cornerstone, those three things is related to your, like not just planning a church, but the other things that the holistic approach to community building. I want to go back to that, but I have to say this, you guys, if you're listening to this, this is like, I mean, some really great information. But if you know anything about Atlanta and the West End, this is actually where Clark Atlanta, Morris Brown, Spelman, Morehouse is all located. And there's so much history in that area. And John, I want you to talk a little bit about the history in that area, and so people can get a picture, because these areas exist in just about every city that you would go to. But I had to say this. I think I contributed to your growth a little bit,
Come on.
So right when you were when you guys were getting set to build and to grow, like I moved to Austin, Texas, and I was in Atlanta, and I moved to Austin, Texas in 2012. And I was there for about 5.5 years. So where all this was taking place, and I had, I was in like, we used to call it life development, but it's just basically, I was at one church I was on staff with. I was over everything from the cradle to the career in that church. And I had one of my former students, when I was living in Austin, contact me. They had graduated college. They had gotten married. They were looking at finding some churches in Atlanta. They wanted a more multi-ethnic church, things that they were looking for. And I gave them a list of about 3 churches that I knew about at that time. And I had heard about Cornerstone just from, although that I was living in Austin, I was of course keeping my pulse on what was happening in the area. That student is now a grown man. His name is Aaron Felder.
Aaron Fender.
Fender, yes.
No.
Fender.
Oh my goodness. That's my business partner.
I know.
This is crazy. That's crazy. That's wild.
I was actually
I remember this.
Yes, I was over the over elementary, middle school, high school, and our college age ministries at a church in the Atlanta area. And he kind of went through middle and high school there. And, with social media now, you can kind of stay in contact. And, I remember his mom and his, their dad. And so he had reached out to me. I think it was over Facebook or one of those. And then I had wondered, I said, I wonder, did he get connected there, or anything? And then I saw when you guys were starting Portrait Coffee, I think I saw him and I was like, wait a minute, he got connected for real.
Oh, listen. Hey, listen. I need to send you a finder's fee, because that's how my daughter's going to college.
All right.
I owe you a lot more than, just to thank you.
Oh my God. I can't, I want to hear about that. I want to talk about these 3 important things. And when you're talking about this holistic approach to community building as it relates to church planning. And then I would love to hear about, Portrait Coffee. And we're going to talk about your book, We Go On. And I think a lot of probably writing that and processing that is because I'm hearing a lot of what's in the book and speaking with you and talking about purpose and just re-examining and Ecclesiastes and just allowing God to just kind of to lead and guide you in your decisions. And I would love to hear about that, because I think so many churches plant because they like a zip code, but they don't have a full picture of what's happening or understand the history of what's happening in that community. I see so many churches that are in communities in Atlanta specifically, where there's a lot of history and a lot of destruction that had taken place. And if you don't have the full context of that history and come in with a plan, you'll have a church in that area, but the church is not doing nothing for the area.
Right. So yeah, this story just kind of flows. One thing flows into the next.
Okay,
All right.
great.
So we live in the historic West End. So yeah, like the church is there, portrait is there, my house is there. Right. So
Okay.
I live less than a mile from Clark, Morehouse, Spelman, three of the most prestigious HBCUs in the world. And it's not a straight walk there, right? That what you found is that I've got to cross I-20 to get there. And right, some of that is what you find when you think about the history of the West End, right? So the West End is a community, it predates the city of Atlanta. And so the West End was growing, it was being built. The HBCUs start. An interesting book, Taylor Branch has a trilogy on the civil rights movement, and you just get great insight into how Spelman was formed, right? One of the Rockefellers sponsored.
Wow.
So it's a huge thing. Well, in the 1930s, Atlanta was redlined, and you can look this up online. There's a map online of the redlining that go on. And for those that don't know what it is, if they're on this podcast, I imagine that they know.
Yeah. They should know, but if not, we Google is your friend.
Got it. Yep. So
we'll put it in the show notes too.
Got it. Where communities of color, like the West End, are outlined in red. And what would take place is that banks wouldn't loan money to people to buy homes in here, but they would build highways right through here. So in the 1930s, there is a map online that you can see right now. You can Google Atlanta redlining map 1930s. And what it does is it segments the city by geography, right? Willie Jennings is going to say geography is never an accident. There's something that took place. So
good.
Yeah, blacks are forced south, whites are up north. Well, if you pull up the 2010 census data and you break it down by demographics, again, a map that you can find online, what you'll find is that the 1930s map and the 2010 map is the exact same map. So what you find is that everybody that drew the redlining map in the 1930s is dead and gone, but their racist inventions outlived their racist intentions, right? And so those are some of the things that we mean. And when we talk about systemic racism, it's they're gone, but their plans achieved a greater height, right? Their plans were on autopilot. They didn't need anybody in the passenger seat. So what you find is that even the demographics in Atlanta are shaped by, or the demographics and the socioeconomics in Atlanta are shaped by that, right? So these are the things that we learn. We find ourselves in a community. We plant this church. Early on, we start a job readiness program. And what we do is we help folks through and we teach them, hey, we want to train you how to be ready to work. People graduate from the program. It seems like things are all good and they're like, we're ready to work. And then as they start to try to apply in the West End, as a beltline is starting to come through and gentrification starting to come through, what they find and what we find very quickly is if you want to afford a home in the West End, you actually need to be employed outside of the West End to afford that home. Right? West End is an opportunity desert. There are not opportunities that'll give you a salary that will enable you to be able to live here. There are jobs here. There aren't careers. And so now at that point, it's all right, what do we do? How do we think about things? And that's when we got to a point where we started to try to think creatively. Erica Brown, that's somebody that you got to talk to. She was in real estate. And as she built this up, one of the things that they found was, hey, gentrification starting to take place. There's lots of people that need to fix their homes and sell their homes. People need lawn care. What does it look like for us to start a lawn care business, Integrity Home Solutions, where we employ people that are ex-felon, or we can employ folks who can't get a job elsewhere, and even provide opportunities for some of the people to own a portion of it at the end. And so this is where, as a church, it's all right, now the people on church staff aren't going to do it, but we had some extra bread as a church, and we're like, yo, we'll help to fund the first part of the equipment, start this thing. It's turned into this thing where now people have a career path through that.
Wow. I didn't even know that. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I love it. This is local church.
Yeah.
This is like your Judea, your Samaria, the other, like, this is where it begins. I love it. I love it.
Portrait coffee too. So Aaron finds this church, right? Your favorite podcaster told him about our church. Aaron comes through, and at this point, me and Aaron both have this love for coffee. So the way that we meet in church is somebody comes to me and they're like, yo, John, I know that you love coffee. There's this other black dude at the church. Mind you, our church is predominantly black. But they're like, and he loves coffee. Y'all should get together. Comes over to my house. Aaron starts to talk about coffee. He's worked in coffee. And this is what he says. He starts to talk about the supply chain. And as he talks about the supply chain of coffee, I say, wait a minute. That reminds me of the city of Atlanta. And here's what I share with him. MARTA in Atlanta runs south to north. If you get on the MARTA train stop, at the southmost train stop, and you know this, the train is all black. The train is Wakanda, right?
Yep.
In the 20-minute ride that you go from Airport Station to North Springs, there's two things that change. The inside of the train changes and the outside of the train changes. So with each stop that you go up north, on the inside, more and more black and brown folks get off the train and more white folks get on. So the train goes from Wakanda to Switzerland in like 20 minutes, right? But then the outside of the train starts to change as well. With each stop that you go up north, the economic conditions skyrocket. So you get a parable of black and brown people getting off the train before they can take advantage of the economic opportunities in a city that they helped build. Now, you look at coffee, the second most consumed beverage in the world outside of water. And what you find is that coffee grows where black and brown people grow. Coffee grows along the equator. But when that supply chain starts to go north through processing, through exporting, through importing, through roasting and retailing, it's the same thing as that train. It moves from Wakanda to Switzerland really quick, and it goes from third world country origin to an industry that's $250 billion per year, and black and brown people share in less than 1% of the wealth. So we said, hey, what does it look like for us to bring that industry into the West End? If we do it that way and we create a compelling story and narrative around it, I think that there are ways, or we think that there are ways that we can teach somebody this skill in the time that it takes them to learn a trade, no 4-year degree needed. And I think we can create careers in coffee instead of just jobs. And we set out to do that. This is we told our story 3 years ago. We started, and 3 years later, it's a 7-figure business. 3 years later, Food and Wine named it one of the top 50 coffee roasteries in the U.S., the top in the state of Georgia. And it was but this is like no sales team. It was just us saying, no, there's a passion that we have. There's a story to be told. And in so many ways, it's an extension of what we feel like that the church should be doing in communities to help to restore and to set things right. And I think Yeah, Aaron is an operational genius. He dreams in Excel spreadsheets. Marcus Hollinger, he
Oh
is
my God.
a marketing guru. My wife Chandra, her aesthetic is amazing. Khalid
Uh,
Smith gets like we've yeah got we just have an amazing team of people that love the
wow.
Lord, that love their craft, and it was hey, there's an economic issue that's affecting our community,
Mm,
and we didn't rush to a solution, right? That a problem well defined is a problem half solved. So we said,
yeah,
no, no, no,
yeah.
no. What's the problem beneath? And it was a opportunity. How do we create that? And the rest is history,
Wow,
right?
wow,
Yeah.
wow. Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
that is such a there and there's some threads where we connect in that coffee story
Hmm.
and tea story that I'll have to fill you in later, even for myself.
Yeah.
Having spent a lot of time in Rwanda,
Hmm.
myself,
That
so
was okay. Yeah, yeah, we got a lot
and
to talk
I
about.
know I know you've been there, right? You've been to Rwanda?
I haven't been to
Okay,
Rwanda.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah. But that's incredible. Now, I want to hear just tell us a little bit about We Go On. Like
Yeah.
the just the spirit and the mission behind the
Yeah.
book and why you wrote the book.
Yeah.
I think we can see the fruit of the
Right.
book
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
in your life. But
Yep.
I would love for the audience, just to
Yeah.
be the bridge audience to hear about your work and what this book is about.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a short book,
Yep.
but how to keep moving, because sometimes when we don't know or if we don't hear God or if we don't sense God, we just get stuck. And I
Stuck.
talk to people all the time, and that was just even with my journey to moving from Atlanta to Texas back to Atlanta. Um, and my prayer was always, God, I'm going to do the next thing I know to do. I'm going to do
That's
that
it.
next right
That's all
thing,
you
and
can do.
sensing God as you're continuing to move forward. But I think sometimes we just get stuck,
Yeah.
and I just look and I say, okay, I'm a step right here. Okay, God, you're doing this. I'm a step right here, but getting confirmation along the way. So I wanted you to just kind of talk about this, and because I know I get a lot of these same questions. How did you decide to start Be the Bridge, or what was
Yeah.
the, what it, and it wasn't a decision. It's like the thread and the
Right.
patterns have always
Yeah.
been there in my life that I could point back to elementary school. You
Right.
know,
Right. Right. Right.
so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. So we started our church close to 8 years ago.
Okay.
So this is 2018 or 2015. We start the
Okay.
church June 7th, 2015. Um, April 14th, 2015. It is 4 days removed from a failed adoption. So me and my wife had been trying to adopt for years, struggling with unexplained infertility. April 10th, we get news that the adoption we tried to work on for a year fell through. I'm speaking at a conference in Orlando on April 14th. I get a phone call that my older brother, who was 32 years old at the time, a wife and 3 kids, that he died suddenly. No explanation.
Mm,
Autopsy was inconclusive. In the best shape of his life, was a pastor at a church in Memphis. Came out from doing premarital counseling for a couple that just started to go to his church. Went in his car, started to prepare for his next time that he was going to preach, and just went to sleep and didn't wake back up. And this is 6 weeks before we start the church. Um, and to say that my life and my world and my faith fell apart would be the grossest of understatements.
mm,
So I think um, my brother dying was the second biggest surprise in my life. I think the first biggest surprise in my life was how quickly my faith in the goodness of God and everything that I preached uh, crumbled, shattered. And
mm.
I just found myself at a place where I was stuck. And I pushed through to start the church. But after that next year, I found myself in a pretty pretty depressed to the point where my church granted me a 1-month sabbatical. And as I'm there, it was I was in this little this shed that I'm in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I pick up the book of Ecclesiastes and I just start to read. And the opening lines got me, where it just says, meaningless, meaningless. Everything's meaningless.
Mm.
And I think it gripped me because it was here I lost everything that I held dear. And I thought, oh yeah, of course I'm depressed because I lost it all. But then I read this book, and from what I know, Solomon wrote that. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm depressed because I lost it all. It seems like he's depressed because he had it all. And it was at that point that it clicked, and it was like, well, wait a minute. If depression isn't circumstantial, then maybe joy isn't either. Maybe there's a way where even through the bitterness of life, that there's ways to find, hope and joy and perseverance. And so it was actually that book that helped to lift me up out of my depression, not by saying things were going to get better, but by helping me realize that, oh, no, John, nothing in life is going to be everything that you hope it would be. And so if you let disappointment stop you in your tracks, then you're always going to be stuck. The way forward is not to hurdle over your obstacles or grief. The way forward is not to graduate or get past your grief as if grief has some expiration date and it's not going to be with you for the rest of the time. The way to get the way to move with or the way to move on is to move forward with your grief, right? And just to know I'm going to lean into it, right? And what I started to find was I wrote this book dealing with the loss of my brother, but I wrote the book in the middle of the pandemic. So what I started to find was even people that hadn't lost somebody tangibly found themselves with this ambiguous sense of loss, right? When you have a loved one die, when people see their body drop into the ground and they see the tears fall from your face, people can connect your falling tears to your fallen loved one. And you're surrounded with hugs and handshakes and casseroles. When you have a dream die, when you have a relationship die, when you have an expectation of what life would be like with a diverse community die, that's an ambiguous loss. And when those things die and you physically and emotionally respond in the same way, you're not surrounded by the same chorus of pats on the back and casseroles. In some way, you grieve all by yourself, right? And so as I wrote this book, it was, oh, no. I don't want anybody to grieve alone. I don't want anybody to feel like they're the only one. I want everybody to feel like, no, nothing in life is going to be everything that we hoped it would be. And the sooner that we embrace that, we can start to live the life of our dreams by learning. And this is a learned skill. We can start to live the life of our dreams by learning to enjoy the life that we have instead of longing for life as we think that it should be. So the book was really this, the title was a response to Dr. King's last work, right? Where do we go from here?
Yeah.
And it's, we go on, right?
Yes.
It's not a destination. Where do we go from here? We just take the very next step.
Yeah.
And then once we get to that next step where both feet are firmly planted, we ask and answer that same question. And so I found that if we can get the courage and fortitude to do that, that we'll be surprised at how far we've come when we finally look back at the things that we think had us stuck.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think the work that, speaking of Dr. King, the work that I feel that Cornerstone is doing is an extension of Operation Breadbasket,
Mm.
that King talks about, and
Yeah.
where do we go from here,
Yeah.
and also a part of the beloved community,
Yeah.
and so that's incredible. I mean, because you do, death, it could bring out it brings out the good and the
Mm.
bad in that sense, with with
Yeah.
that deep sorrow. But I think in that deep sorrow,
Mm.
I think there's actually a scripture in Ecclesiastes 3 where it talks about, like, it's better to be in mourning than at a wedding. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think just having, I lost my father during COVID, during
Mm.
the in
I'm sorry to yeah. Sorry to
optimal
hear that.
health, 68 years old. And I'm the only I'm my dad's only child.
Mm.
I have a stepsister also, who he loved like a daughter. But that is that is some deep
Mm.
pain and work,
Mhm.
and this year I was actually traveling on the anniversary of his death, and I
Yeah.
told Lauren, I said, I was doing exactly what my dad would have wanted me to do.
Mm.
I was moving on, I was going on, in that, because he loved the work that I did, and so
Mm.
that would bring him
Amen.
joy to see me still doing and going and being,
Amen.
in that work. And I said, I think I want to acknowledge, the time that he departed his earthly body. I
Yeah.
said, but I think I want to just celebrate his birthday when he
Yeah.
entered into this world. But I think I just want to acknowledge, when he passed on privately, but not something that I'm going to
Right.
probably talk about every year. Just,
Yeah.
we
No,
all
I understand.
handle death in our own ways. There's no right or wrong way in that, and in that process of grief. But I think, that is a lot of, like, probably some of the working that I see within this next work that I'm working on,
Mm.
comes from
Come on.
that time of
Yeah.
just, of deep sorrow. And
Mm.
that's an incredible, story. You also mentioned the issues with infertility, and but I know in your bio I mentioned, a baby girl.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so that is something to celebrate.
It
And
is.
so to hear you say that, and then to know that, you just bought her a puppy that she don't want to take care of.
Right. 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 See, is that's the perspective that I need, right?
Right.
That's the perspective that I need.
That's the
Yeah.
perspective. I
Mm.
am, what are, there's a lot of, you talk a lot in the book about mentorship. What is the greatest, advice that you've been given as a leader,
Yeah.
that has
Oof.
helped, like a guiding principle or something that's been said that you are still leaning into every day of your life?
Yeah. There's a few things.
Uh-huh.
One is the sweetest word in any language is somebody's first name. And
Mm,
so, yeah, I had a mentor that told me that years ago and I never forgot it. So
mm,
everywhere I am, every church I've pastored, every time I meet somebody, I ask them their names. And if I forget their names, I'll just embrace and say, hey, I forgot your name that quick. Like, just, yeah, names are important and they
huh,
instill dignity in a world that wants to commodify, use people and
mhm,
consume them and spit them out. And so that was one thing for me. And the other thing that same mentor, one thing that he brought up was he would always say this word, praise what you want to see more of. Um, and I think we live in a world where um, if you say things strongly, even if they're wrong, if they're strong and wrong and they're polarizing,
uh-huh,
the winds of social media and public opinion and outrage will carry those words and provide a sense of prominence and platform and clout. And if
mhm,
you encourage people, that doesn't travel far. But pastoring for 16 years, one of the things that I've learned is that nobody is discouraged into faithfulness, right? Nobody becomes more faithful by consistently hearing you ought to be ashamed of yourself, even if they ought to be ashamed of themselves. But there is something about encouraging people towards faithfulness, praising what we want to see more of, that has this unique way of encouraging people to do things that they never thought was possible. So those are two of the things that I think have shaped me, and anybody that knows me and has been led by me. There's lots of critiques in the way that I lead. Like I told you,
Right.
I voluntarily left from leading.
Yeah.
And the people in the organization were not like, please stay. They were like, all right, yeah. No, it's about time, right?
I get it. I get it.
But
I think it's an incredible thing for a leader to be self-aware.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. What are some things, there's a lot happening, in our world, in our community, within the church. What are some of the things that's causing deep lament for you right now?
Yeah. One of the things that I feel like is that's like causing a bit of lament for me is the continued critical nature by which I feel like people are continuing to operate by, right? So I think years ago, an article came out called The Gamification of Twitter by a guy by the name of C.T. Wynn. And he just talks about how social media has actually changed the way in which we communicate, right? That we've learned to score points off of critique, polarization, and things like that. And I think I just really lament the fact that, one, the church has an amazing opportunity to be this like beacon of encouraging words and dealing with people that have done some very, very bad things in very stern but gentle ways. And I think that we've missed that. So that's one thing. And then two, even as we find ourselves in a place with conversations continuing about, diversity, it's hard to see continued polarization and argument instead of a civilized definition of terms, right? Like those are the things that I just feel like, just really wanting to find ways to define terms and to come together and to focus on the right things, where I feel like, a focus on solidarity. What does it look like when the church comes together to address the needs of the disenfranchised and disadvantaged? That when that takes place, when the church takes seriously her responsibility to remember the poor, and that word remember is as broad and expansive as when God will use it of himself. It feels like it's that kind of solidarity that produces the diversity that we all want. And so I think I'm just lamenting a pathway that seems to be so clear is obscured because there's been an overgrowth of meanness and confusion and misunderstanding.
I love that. That's good. Thank you. I lament that with you. And I think lament also leads us toward hope,
Right.
and I feel like it's an act of worship. We see David, the prophets do that, model that in scripture for us, and beckon to God to change, their life and the human condition. And so as I speak of what are some things that's bringing you hope in this moment? So there's some
Yeah.
things that's bringing you lament, but what
Yeah.
are some things that's bringing you hope?
Yeah. Excuse me. People that are building, people that are putting their
Yeah.
hands to the plow and are
Yeah.
working in obscurity, people that
Uh-huh.
nobody know of, but I just look off to the side and I see them, and it's like, oh, no. They like they're putting
Uh-huh.
one foot in front of the next. So I'm always encouraged
Yeah.
people um by people who do lament, but
Mm.
who don't use the best of their platform or wisdom or words to merely publicly lament as if
Mhm.
that and only that's going to change things. But I love the folks
Right.
that are honest but hopeful. And so they
Mm.
will lament with the best of us, but each day they get up and they say, oh, I'm right back to work and
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah.
be patient because I know that, yeah, this is God's work. So I love,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
with you.
I love the work that y'all do.
Yeah.
Justin
Yeah.
Giboney and the AND campaign. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, for
Yeah.
years, right? And people don't
Yeah.
know this. Justin was the first person to give $1 to Cornerstone Church back in the day. Um,
Wow. Wow.
and for these past 9 years, just to see, yeah, him and that group just say, hey, in some of the most polarizing
Yeah.
political times in our world
Yes.
since like 1864, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
minding their business, just quietly building,
Yeah.
and I think will sit in the shade of some of that
Of
fruitfulness.
that work. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was just on a panel with him
mm,
last week at Calvin University. So
yeah,
and although we're from Atlanta, we've been in some of the same circles and we've spoken at some of the same events,
yeah,
but this was the first time we really got a chance to talk and sit
yeah,
down and talk. So that was great.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, brother. I have to have some hope, like,
Right, got
and
to.
and hope. I gotta have some hope, and it's like my hope is not necessarily, fixated on people,
Right,
but in the God that we serve. Like, and I
absolutely.
and I think we have in this complex world and
Mm,
things that we're dealing with structures and all of the things, if we're not leaving as followers of Christ,
yeah,
we got to leave people with some hope.
mm,
And
absolutely.
last question, and then we can close up. What are some things what is something that you did that brought joy to you with this month?
This month.
Yeah, this
All
just
right.
this month.
Yeah. Okay. I love my books. I love my
Okay.
books. I
Okay.
love to read, and I'm gonna
I,
grab
I
this
read
book.
that you're an avid reader and deep thinker.
Oh my goodness, this
Uh-huh.
book,
Which one is that?
Half of a
Oh,
Yellow
okay.
Sun.
Oh,
So
it's
it's
so good.
oh, it's fantastic. So
Okay.
uh while African Americans were fighting for civil rights in the 60s,
Uh-huh.
um, Nigerians had gained
Uh-huh.
their independence from Britain as a colony in the early 60s and
Mm-hmm.
were fighting a civil war at the end. And it
Mm.
was like this is so much of this is like my dad was, yeah,
Mm.
college
Yeah.
age when all this stuff
Right.
went through, and
Uh-huh.
I just never had a clue of the gravity of the
Mm.
Biafran war. And so I read that book, and it brought just so much context to my parents. I called my dad, and it's like, "All right, Dad, I'm gonna fly down, and I got to sit down, and I'm gonna record it, and you got to tell me everything about it." So it
Wow.
was like, yeah, people
Mm.
often talk about, the benefit of books and what you learn from them. But yeah, this past month, I mean, I read that book, and uh, at least for me, um, I'm Nigerian. I've grown up in the United States my whole life. And
Hmm.
so I've read and all that stuff, and I know a great deal about the history of uh, Black folks in the United States. And I
Mm,
feel a great sense of solidarity as it relates to that. And I've
right.
just found out, oh, there's this whole other section of Black
Yeah.
history that I tapped into. So I read that book,
Wow.
and then I went online and I bought every other book that I could
Everything.
find on the topic. So that'll
Okay.
set my reading for the month. But that's a thing that I did that, yeah,
Yeah.
caused me great joy. You?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm so glad that and I guess thinking of that, like you said, there's this having grown up here, you know this history, but then there's this whole history that you're disconnected from.
Yeah.
And I know, with me, I did the African ancestry
Yeah.
a couple years ago, and so where they kind of like trace um, your your paternal and maternal like bloodline, and for my maternal bloodline, um, it went back to Yoruba.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
so yeah, so I was like, so at the weekend the week I found that out, I went to I was involved in this mentorship, executive leadership mentorship program, and there were three people there that were from Nigeria,
Mm.
and they all of them were of the Yoruba tribe, and
Okay.
so we were
Okay. Okay.
talking about that, and I had the opportunity to share that, and it's like we need to christen you with the name.
Listen.
so,
Okay. How they
and so
gave
they
you one?
gave me a name. They gave me a name, Olawakimi,
Okay. Okay.
and
Okay.
I had to let it, sit. And I was, and then why it's so fresh. I was talking with my cousins about it. They like
Yeah.
wait for me to do the research and like want me to tell them all the research that I'm doing,
Come on.
But
I love it.
yeah, and so it's so funny. So when I'm meeting, I've never had the opportunity to visit Nigeria, and I know that the lines that exist today, that is a reflection of colonization. Those are not the
Hmm.
lines that existed during the transatlantic slave trade. So I know that and understand that. But to have a name and to have something attached to a tribe and a people group, and then there's certain characteristics about that people group, and then
Hmm.
people can tell me about that, having names attached to that. Like I
Nothing
was
like
able
it,
to
right?
look what your name meant up, your surname. I was able to look it up and find out what it meant,
Yep.
and what it was related to. And
Hmm.
I'm just like, wow, like names mean something,
Oh, my
And
full
that is
name
why I
is,
wanted to say your name at the beginning. It's great that we call you John O,
yeah.
but also understanding what your surname means and
Yeah.
where it comes from is really important. And
Yeah.
so that's more important to me now, having learned this all of this information. I had a chance to interview a Kimini,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
who's another Nigerian sister,
Right. Right.
Sam
Right.
Acho,
Yep.
And, I haven't
My
had a
God.
chance to interview his brother, but that's coming.
Okay.
So I'm getting
I
the
love it.
opportunity to just look. So we're doing some incredible things. You see how I said we are?
Listen,
We
hey,
are.
say it. Say it. Listen,
We are doing some
I
incredible
love it.
things, right?
I love it. We are. We are.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's special.
thank you so much.
No, thank you.
I have got to. I really want to take a tour of Portrait Coffee,
Yep.
so we're gonna have to make that happen.
Come on. I will
We
set it up.
also have some other mutual friends. Samuel Dula. I don't know if you know Samuel Dula.
I know, Sam. We playing a blueprint
We yeah,
together.
at Samuel, we were on staff together for many years.
Oh,
Um, at a church together. I was actually Samuel's boss.
there we go. There it is.
Nah, but listen, I've known him since I was in college. He was
Yep.
actually one of the main reasons why I went into full-time ministry.
Mm.
He was right out of college, and he was helping mentor student leaders on campuses in North Carolina area. So we go back a long ways. I was at his wedding He and his
Really?
wife, I was a bridesmaid in his
Tina,
wedding. We
look
go
at that.
back. We go back. And
That's
actually, we're going to be
wow.
meeting. I'm going to be meeting with him and a couple other people in Atlanta in the next couple coming week. And so,
Come on.
small world. That's why I
Small
think I
world.
feel like I've known you. So it was a pleasure.
Oh,
This is just the
absolute pleasure.
beginning. This is just
This
the
definitely can't be
beginning.
the last time.